Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, brothers, and sisters. This is round number 6 of the VMO Touring Car Championship. My name is Chris Buxton, and I'll be one of your commentators for this amazing night's racing here at Croft. A bit of a letter-trodden track as far as racing is concerned, but it is still an amazing place. Joining me in the commentary box, I'm very happy to say, is Alex Newman. Hello, Alex. We've got an interesting time up north in Yorkshire.
It's good to be back. I really do like the TCUK Esports series. Again, Croft, as we were mentioning in previous rounds, is a very, I guess you could say, overlooked track. You don't hear much of it. There's not many racing series that go on here. And genuinely, this is my first time, if I'm going to be open and honest, actually seeing this track. I've never broadcasted here. I've never raced here. So it's going to be interesting to say the least.
Yeah, well, I've never raced on Croft, and it's actually a track I haven't been to in real life. One day I will venture that far north. I'm a southerner myself, so it is quite a hike. But this track is really, really different to almost anything that we've seen in the season so far. If we have a look, brief overview. Brands Hatch, it's a very flowing track. Silverstone, again. There's a fair flow to it. Again, here's the Canada. So we've had Brands Hatch Indy, fairly short, but it's only 6 corners, a nice flow. Silverstone International, again, very short, but there's a definite flow to it. Thruxton, almost completely flat out. Donington National, a lot of fast parts in that. Oulton Park Island, quite a technical circuit. This is all technical circuit. Croft is very twisty, very trying. This is about balance and about grip. The top end has got nothing to do with anything here. You are never going to get to the absolute top end of your car unless you really, really have very short gears. But it's going to test balance and perseverance. The corners come at you like an assault, and a never-ending assault of that. So we're in for a fantastic night's racing. We've had some amazing racing in every single circuit we've seen so far. Dan Herlock has a very commanding lead of the championship, 233 points to the good for him, with 4 wins, 10 podiums out of all 15 starts that he's had so far. Again, reminder to those that, or for those that haven't been with us before, it is 3 races per round, and 5 of them have been and gone. So we're halfway through the season now. 70 points lead Dan Herlock has over the 2 Callums, Callum Wilson and Callum Cripps, both on 163. Tom O'Leary is 4th with 149, and Jean-Marc Fiducci, the early dominator of the series, in 5th position. He's missed 2 rounds, Thruxton and Oulton Park, which puts him on 136 so far. Well, we will have a look at the qualifying results now. Matt Richards. Now, before we went live, Alex perfectly picked Matt as the pole sitter. I got it completely wrong. Matt Richards, by half a tenth over Jean-Marc Fiducci, takes the front row. Dan Kell and Dan Herlock will take on row 2. Mitch Marie, superb effort. The 4's really coming good this time around. Dan Kell as well, both are for Calamity, getting very high up the grid. Jordan Richardson rounds out row 3. Cedar Vaya and Tom O'Leary, who was my bid for pole, on row 4. Matt Allington and Tom Hackett in row 5. Row 6 is Matt Lee and Bruno Reyno. Row 7 is Scott Jamal and Jeffrey Fournier. So again, some new names coming in. I'm not recognizing some of these. So fantastic to see new names getting involved. Callum Wilson and Thomas Mould. Again, another name I haven't seen before. It's another one of the Chrome Hyundais. Oh, lovely. Great to see another one of those. Callum Wilson and Thomas Mould take on row 8. Jack Nichols and Callum Cripps, row 9. Ben Willis and Adam Christopher round out the top 10 rows. Rounding out the field, Phil Morby and Alan Smith will have row 11. Cameron Brewster and Ty Cuthbert, row 12. Tiago Lopez and Matt Spooner, tail end of the field, not quite getting representative laps in. Now, 26 cars took to qualify. This is a very twisty circuit. The road looks wide, but it really pinches up in certain points. I don't think I have commentated here without there being some monumental incident at certain points. Clervaux through to Hawthorne, it gets you're on the gas for quite a while from the hairpin, which is the corner right at the back of the shot, the final turn of the lap, right the way down to some very twisty, very narrow parts. So there is going to be one pinch point, and into Tower Bend as well. The next kind of longest straight into this chicane we're looking at. Out of this chicane. This is actually the chicane after Hawthorne. Then along the straight, you can just see going out of the camera shot towards Tower Bend. That is going to be the next kind of trouble spot. But with a reverse grade race mixed in the tonight's racing, we could be in for some interesting times.
Definitely so. And to make it a bit more interesting, we obviously have a I say brand new, it's just been a refurbished tire allocation. Now all 3 tire sets must be used, so we now have the hards, the softs and the medium that have to be ran in all 3 races. And what we do see, it's quite mixed out here, because obviously those soft tires around Croft are going to die pretty quickly, so getting those out the way is probably going to be your best bet, as we can see the majority of the grid have chosen to take their soft tires going into the 3rd race, compared to most of people taking the hard tires going on to the 1st and 2nd race.
See, I'm kind of with you on that one. I would have thought it would have been more advantageous to get the soft tire out of the way, unless they don't die as quickly as we think they will. Croft is not kind on tires. It is somewhat of a time muncher, so I'm a bit surprised that most of the field have opted to run the option tire, the softest compound, on the final race. But even still, we do still have a number of different tire allocations being run. So it'll take kind of too long to run through them all. So we'll run through those that are not running the hard tire. So Dan Herlock is running the softs. Matt Ritt's Pulses are running mediums. Jack Nichols is mediums. Scott Mitchell-Malm is medium. Jack London, Cameron Brewster, and Gianmarco Fiducci are on softs. Nathan Croak has pulled out, but he would have been running the mediums. Jordan Richardson is on medium. Tom Hackett soft. Tom O'Leary medium. Max Spooner, Callum Cripps are on softs. Tiago Lopez is on mediums, with Dan Kell soft, Alan Smith medium, Tom Mould on softs, Stephen McCready and Callum Wilson running the medium tyre. So, yeah, real mixture of compounds going on. I would have thought the mediums were probably your best bet. The hards, being that the race is so short, are so short, I'm not really certain if the hards are really going to get up to their optimum temperatures in time. But, like we said, all 3 compounds have to be run. Therefore, you can only run each compound once. So it's going to be a real interesting decision on who runs the softs and when. Now, as mentioned, we do have a reverse grid element that will be for our 3rd race, and most drivers opting to use their option tires on the 3rd race. Very few drivers have opted to run the options on the middle race. So, curious decision there. The grid for the 2nd race is formed from the results of the 2nd race. I should actually clarify: it's not a fully randomized grid, reverse grid. It's a random element between the top 6 or the top 12 that will be randomly chosen in between races 2 and 3 as to how many of the top 12 are reversed. So, if the random number comes out as 8, for instance, then it is the top 8 from finishing results of race 2 that are then reversed to form the grid for race 3. If it's 10, then the top 10 are reversed, yada, yada, yada. So that is where most people have opted to run their soft tire, which I suspect that is an indication that a lot of people are suspecting they're going to need to do some recovery driving. So, yeah. That's I think a lot of people are expecting somewhat of a chaotic 3rd race tonight.
Yeah, that was going to be my theory point that I was going to say earlier. But obviously with that being, well, you could say the worst performing race for most drivers, with that reverse grid effect for those 12 drivers that finish in the 2nd race, that is obviously, I'm going to just say you're spot on there, that most people are going to have to do a recovery drive. And it might be, I'm not going to say it, but we've seen just what that chicane is on the track pan there. It's so narrow, so I'm reckoning this is going to be quite a fatal track.
Yeah, I think that is a very good way to put it. There is going to be quite a lot of discarded bits of car across the track tonight. So as we wait for the field to get all in and the grid to be formed, we can have a chat about who our main protagonists are. Dan Herlock, like we said, is leading the way. He's won 4 races out of the 15 that we have had thus far. He won the final round at Silverstone. He won the opening round at Thruxton, as well as the first 2 races of Donington Park. He has seen a further 6 podiums outside of that, and has been in started and finished every single race. His lowest score was actually the 3rd race last time out at Oulton Park, only scoring 5 points on that occasion. Callum Wilson brought home that last win at Oulton Park. He also won the final round at Thruxton, so seemingly the reverse grid aspect serving his favour on a couple of occasions. Has also seen another 2 podiums. First one being the opening round at Brands Hatch. He was 3rd there and 2nd at the final race of Silverstone. But one driver I do want to particularly highlight, Callum Cripps, or I'm going to call him Triple C, Callum Consistency Cripps, hasn't won a race yet. It sits joint 2nd with Callum Wilson. He's seen 5 podiums, yet to see a win, but still right up there at 163 points. That is, consistency personified.
I agree. As we do see now, the grid has lined up, getting ready to go for race 1. Obviously, we do have that formation that will take place very, very shortly, as well as we do see Matt Richards taking pole position, as we do already see it now. The formation lap has started. We do see it's going to be Matt Richards taking pole position, followed then by Dan Kell in that Ford, and then Daniel Herlock taking P3. So a very diverse podium so far, all 3 different manufacturers taking it. So again, it looks like it could be quite an unpredictable race in terms of the bot.
Dan Kell currently sits 9th in the championship, 2 podiums to his name. Has missed some of the races. Wasn't with us in Thruxton. Was not with us at Oulton Park. But yeah, so real kind of return to top form for Dan Kell. Has scored very well in the races that we've seen. Like I say, he did score. It was 3rd at the 2nd race of Silverstone. Was 3rd with fastest lap of Donington Park, the 2nd race in Donington Park. So knows how to score well. Hasn't quite had the front running pace, but this could be. Jordan Richardson, that looked rather somewhat keen to get on with it. Looked like he was going for a bit of an exploratory line, but again, we have got a few new names we're slightly less familiar with, so they could well come, storm through the field, could come good slightly later on. So we will have to see how that pans out. Matt Richards now leading the field towards through the turns. They have people giving their tyres a fair amount of weaving to get on with it. Now, Dan Herlock is on soft tyres, as mentioned. Dan Kell is on... He too is on the soft tyres. So Matt Richards is running the medium. So he is going to have a tyre disadvantage to the 2 cars immediately behind him. Could this be an opportunity for Dan Kell to score his first victory? Will Dan Herlock be able to overcome? But then we've seen this before, haven't we? Where we think there's going to be a tyre advantage and it's disproven. And also the medium tyres is not a huge step from the softs as we would normally see between the options and the prime tyres.
That is true. Again, just 15 laps though. Medium tyres should be quite good there. Obviously with the final hairpin as well, it's going to provide some really good overtaking opportunities and probably one of the only.
Very true. Oh, Max Spooner looked like he was struggling to actually get into his starting position there and has to reverse. In fairness, that hairpin is really, really tight. That's not entirely his fault. But with the field now formed, it is time to get the first race of the night underway. Drivers lined up, and we are away. We are racing here in Croft. And the Civic pulls over to block off the Ford. Nicely done. Everybody has gotten away quite nicely. Oh, look at Richards already feeling the need to defend very, very hard from the fast-starting Dan Kell into the chicane, then into Clairvaux and Hawthorne Bend for the first time in anger. That looks like Richardson that's getting alongside Mitch Marie. Bit of a bump between them, and the Civic is sent off into the dust. So Jordan Richardson, he's tried to get alongside Mitch Marie, didn't quite pull off, and he has gone off for a bit of a wander. There's Matty Allington with a couple of those Hyundais that we mentioned. That is Richardson and Lee Oh, that's a bit of a wander onto the grass. I think that's Mitch Marie who's under pressure from Cedo Via in the Brabham Esports car. This the Brabham now gets the outside line, sweeps through, and goes up into 5th position. Very nicely done indeed.
It does seem, though, the top cars are currently displaying a bit of skeptical there, as we do think that's going to be one of the Hyundais, unfortunately, going off there. I believe that's going to be Hackett, unfortunately, going to the barrier just in the first lap, as we go back on board now with Matty Allington, currently in P7, wanting to try and make up any positions he can while when all of the cars are quite close together here, as we do see going through some of the final corners, going into the hairpin for the first time of tonight. Tries to break it on a bit later, trying to get the inside line going in to that very, very tight chicane is going to be optimal for himself to try and get some of these moves done. But we do see going back on board now with Daniel Kell, who is trying to score his first win, as you just said earlier, Chris, as he goes in to turn 1 of Cloverx and Halford Bend. Now, it doesn't seem he's going to be able to make any sort of moves now as we get the dual camera going on. It's just, again, just trying to place your car in the right position so far and just hoping the car in front makes a mistake.
Now, what you'll get a real appreciation for, particularly with the onboard, with the picture-in-picture, is just how bumpy Croft is. Now, of course, these cars are absolutely glued to the ground and very, very stiffly sprung. So any minor bump is going to be felt really, really distinctly in these cars. So Richard's doing a great job of fending off Dankel. Again, bearing in mind that Dankel is on those softer tyres. So Matt Richards doing a brilliant job of keeping the soft shot Ford right behind, but Dankel is not giving him any quarter. Runs a tiny bit wide on the exit of Sunny Out, but manages to keep the car pointing the right direction. Into the complex they come then. So to complete another lap, look at Dan Herlock, that big old Beamer must feel like an absolute barge to try and rotate around this circuit. The Beamer is, of course, a little bit longer than the rest, so on a tight, twisty circuit like this, it does not help, but he's doing a great job of keeping the field away. Gianmarco Fiducci up into 4th, was down to 7th at the beginning of the race. So the second, the BMW, the Veloci Star, up into 4th, and closing in on the top 3. Dan Herlock all over Dan Kell. Dan Kell keeping Matt Richards true and honest.
Does seem now this is when the drivers will start getting a sense of relief, when all of the cars are becoming a tiny bit more isolated after obviously the turn 1 incidents and the lap 1 incidents that we did see unfortunately earlier. But we do see Daniel Kell needs to be in a bit of a optimistic position now. He wants to try and get past Matt Richards as quickly as he can. The more time he's spent attacking, the more time we do see the name of Daniel Herlock and Fiducci, who are starting to gain on them once again. We do see Fiducci actually gaining a lot more time than I expected as he goes up into P4, as you mentioned earlier, from P7 in just 3 laps now. But Daniel Kell all over the rear now with Matt Richards as we go in to now the longest straight on the track, but it's still nowhere near as long as you would want it to be, but still not going to be able to get by. It's just showing you how difficult it is going to be overtaking around this track, and obviously with the bumps as well, you just need to try and minimize any sort of, again, disruption to your car. As we go back down into Wire's position now on P7, the original position of Fiducci. Doesn't seem much is going to happen though. That's going to be again the Vapor Shield car trying to go for the inside line, going into the hairpin. He gets the move done. It's a bit of door rubbing, but it does seem he gets the move done. It's probably a bit of a stupid inquiry to see if that was a legal move, but it does seem to still be going side by side there.
A little bit bullish there from Jordan Richardson, bearing in mind he has had a grassy excursion already on the outside line coming into Clervaux. It's not usually going to pay off, but he does manage to make it work on the inside line, getting past Matty Allington. But Matty Allington in the Ford is not having any of that. Gets the inside line, and Richardson has to bail. Oh, but that is Allington that's gone for a bit of a grassy excursion. Kept his boot absolutely pinned. As we've got the picture in picture, that is, well, that's actually from Cedo Fire's perspective. So riding on board, still side by side, Allington and Richardson. They can't decide who wants to come out on top of this, and a big old gaggle of cars right behind them. This is a fantastic scrap, and again, that's Allington having to take a exploratory line, shall we say, coming through the Jim Clark S. Is now Bancroft, Sonny Inns. Oh, and he's gone too deep. Oh no, and that's Mitch and Malm that's gone way too deep in the Ford. It's falling down through the field. Matty Allington losing so many positions. As soon as you touch the grass there through Sunny and Sunny Out, you lose so much momentum. And he's now still falling down through the field.
And again, we've seen it before, unfortunately, going in to Sunny and out there. Unfortunately, just people making small mistakes can cost them, again, so much time and positions as we do see now still going side by side, going through the hairpin. It's not really a big enough corner to actually go side by side there, but they still make it work. They go side by side going down into turn one. It doesn't seem he's going to be able to get past. Yeah, Matty Allington having to try and wait to pounce to get past. Now what is going to be one of the quartermaster cars there. Again, not going to be able to get by Christopher there just yet. Again, it does seem to just be very dormant so far, all of these battles, but they will brew as we get back on board now with Fiduci, as we do see now him and Daniel Herlock still fighting at it, as we do see now Daniel Kell and Matt Richards have started to create a tiny bit of a gap. So we do have two kind of isolated battles here, but we do want to see Fiduci trying to make a move this lap ideally for himself if he wants to try and get any sort of podium points here.
True enough. It looks like Dan Herlock maybe struggling a bit on these tyres. He's about 9/10 off the back of the lead too now. So Dan Herlock, our championship leader, also doesn't necessarily need to push too hard, doesn't need to win every single round. With that 70-point lead coming into this round, doesn't necessarily need to risk, do the big moves. Just has to score consistent points. Fiduci looks on the inside of the hairpin, gets that inside line. I don't think Dan Herlock really fought that one. Again, like I say, doesn't particularly need to, as the Italian gets up into third position then with whatever tyre life he's got left. And again, if Dan Herlock is struggling a bit on those tyres, the rest of the night's racing will come back to him. 10 laps remaining of this 15-lap race. So a third of the way through, as Tom O'Leary is into the pit lane. So disaster befalling the Richards & Co BMW. Not ideal for him. He's fourth in the championship. That may well be dented tonight. And that's Dan Cal having a look on the inside line coming down towards Tower. Can't get it done though. That Civic is just fast enough to keep the Ford at bay.
Exactly. Fiduci here as well, having to try and get as many wins as he can possibly at the moment to try and even have that score and to try and narrow down that championship points between him and Herlock. Again, he did miss quite a few rounds, so we need any points he wants. And he precisely, it sounds a bit harsh, but he wants Herlock to not succeed. But that's just unfortunately how it has to be for Fiduci to even have the attempt to try and win this championship here. As we do see now going back on board with Jack Nicklaus as he gets all of the rear now of what is going to be the Brabham Esports Toyota of Wire there in P7. This is going to increase the points if he's able to get this position done, and will obviously determine his grid position going into race 2. We do see it now going into Sunny in and out, I believe. As it does seem he's soon. No, this is going into the hairpin. Now, this is usually the best place to overtake for someone. It does seem he's going to try to do a switch back there, but we do see Wire all over it, not letting that happen. Covers the inside line nicely.
Indeed. As the newcomer to the series of Jack Nicklaus in the Kings Racing Ford, just glued to the back of the Toyota of Cedar Via. They're now coming through Clervaux into Hawthorne. Then you've got the Richards & Co BMW. There's Callum Cripps right behind, gets a great exit from Hawthorne Bend. Nowhere to use that momentum though. A little bit of dust being kicked up from Jack Nicklaus then in the 8th place Ford, but does not lose that position at the moment. They're just going through the shot is Mitch Marie. So that group has dispersed a bit from when we last looked at it, but still keeping each other all very honest. I'm looking at the tower, and you see the gap that Dan Herlock has lost to the top 3 then. So he may well have decided that his tyres are absolutely sponged by now, which everyone except for Matt Richards in that top 4 have the same issue. Oh, big slide there from Jack Nicklaus. Went in a little bit too hot going into Sunny Inn, but does manage to keep it on the tarmac. But he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to try and get past Cedar Via. I think he's more driving in his mirrors because Callum Cripps means business in the Richards & Co BMW behind.
Does seem though, looking at the tyres, we do see that's going to be the Richards & Co car just going side by side, but we go on board now with Tom Hackett, who's going to be able to try and make this move going into the hairpin. He tries to go for the switchback once again onto the quartermaster car. He gets the outside line. Will he get enough momentum now going on to the start finish straight? He has the inside line going into turn 1, but he doesn't need it. Gets the move done. But what I was saying is that tyre, it does seem the medium does have to have that sweet spot to actually perform optimally, but it does seem to be the fastest tyre. That soft tyre does die off quite quickly. About lap 7, we are starting to see the effects on Daniel Herlock. I don't know who's on those hard tyres that we can use. That's a flip there. That's going to be one of the high on dice there. Just going off. That's going to be, unfortunately, Tom Mould going into, I believe that's turn 2. What's happened there?
Well, it did look like it was coming out of the chicane. That's gone horribly wrong for one of our newcomers. That is Mould. That is now just Well, yeah, I'm not really surprised considering the amount of rolls he put on that one. But now looking to our top three, Richards from Cal from Fiduci on the picture-in-picture is Gianmarco Fiduci, the nose of the BMW just being slightly dislodged there from Dan Cal. Dan Cal's not going for that big almighty move into the hairpin, maybe choosing a little bit later on in the race to try and do it, or perhaps the Civic is just getting them powered down at the right times to keep Dan Cal at bay. Dan Herlock is closed in a little bit, a couple of tenths. Now within a second of that top three, may well just be trying to cool his tyres down. But Fiduci, exactly as we were alluding to earlier, Alex, does not have that luxury. He has lost, it's basically 6 races worth of points he hasn't been able to score as he wasn't with us. So he really needs every point advantage he can get, particularly over Dan Herlock if he wants to be challenging for the championship. That's Cal having a look on the outside line coming down towards Barcroft, but that is not going to work. There's too much right-hander going on here. That's going to open the door for Fiduci, does it? Not quite. The Veloci Ace not close enough to try and capitalize on that as they work their way through more of the turns, heading towards the complex once more.
It does seem though this is where Matt Richards is going to be in that sweet spot, but for how long? Just being able to stay ahead and just gluing yourself to the only practically fast line that you can see. So as we do now see Fiduci starting to get ever so closer now to what is going to be Dan Cal and P2. And this is what Matt Richards wants. He wants Fiduci to actually catch up so he can actually have a tiny bit of an attempt to try to take P2 and then again reduce the pressure onto Matt Richards so he can potentially have a chance at winning this race. But with still going on 5-6 laps left to go, it's still looking quite unpredictable so far. It does seem all 4 cars are still in such a close proximity of each other and still not going to be able to get past. We do see a tiny bit of a false move there from Fiduci on to P2 there of Dan Cal. Isn't going to do anything yet. Just seeing if Dan Cal was going to react to it. Doesn't seem so just yet. Again, Dan Cal very, very focused on Matt Richards ahead. He's not looking too much in his mirrors, just so he relieves pressure on himself. But we do see this is where we start seeing the optimistic moves starting to happen coming to the end of the race. Everyone's starting to get a tiny bit of impatience in them as we do see Fiduci actually starting to break a tiny bit later there. And that is going to happen. It could cause incidents.
Yeah, the tail of the BMW getting a little bit uncomfortable as it was coming through Tower Bend, now coming through Jim Clark S's towards Barcroft and Sonny Inn once again. Dan Cal has done a brilliant job of gluing himself to the back of the Civic. Matt Richards is just driving so defensive where he needs to. I've watched his line coming through the hairpin at the end of the lap, and he was so close to the inside, really compromised his line through it. But because everyone's so close, it compromises everyone's exit. So that's exactly what he wants. He does not want to be giving any advantage to anybody. Look at that. So he stays very left. Oh, Fiduci! Oh, a tiny opening left there for Dan Cal. And Gianmarco Fiduci dives through up into second. But does he have the drive? Does he have the exit? Fiduci trying to box in Dan Cal behind Matt Richards. They're still side by side. They're coming up towards Clevo once again. The 4 does the inside line, runs Fiduci wide, and that's going to give Dan Herlock an opportunity to get up into third. Door banging between the 2 BMWs. The Veloci Ace just and only just hangs on to third. So that's actually given Matt Richards a bit of breathing space as Dan Cal, of course, compromised through the first few turns. Matt
Richards probably having a tiny bit of a smoke on his face after seeing that as it gets a bit of a lockup there going in to the corners. We do see now Fiduci having to try and gain this time back that he just lost there, unfortunately, from him going wide. Again, we just see how isolated it has become just from that little small battle that we did see has caused big gaps now in between all 4 of the cars. I'm still surprised how close Daniel Herlock is still to the proximity of the front 3 as we can just see him in the back of the camera view there as we do see Matt Richards now just have to do this for 5 more laps actually now to take home the victory for round 1 here, as we can see now Cameron Brewster as well in the Drake Racing Cooper is currently P9. Does look like he has a bit of pressure from the Richards & Co car of Callum Wilson behind him. Callum Wilson definitely capable driver of getting by, as it does seem he's going to have that slipstream as well, as we can see the Hyundai putting a tiny bit of pressure on that BMW. So a bit of a reverse plot twist for himself there, having to try and balance how much he attacks and defends at the same time without obviously losing too much time as we go into the hairpin. This is usually where we see the overtakes happening, but we do see there's going to be a tiny bit of a pit maneuver there from the Cupra onto the Ford of what's going to be Mitch Marie. Doesn't seem anything happen though, luckily for both drivers, but we do see it's now going to be the Hyundai versus the BMW going into turn 1 of Clervix and going into the bend as well. It does seem that the Hyundai gets it done pretty flawlessly, to be fair.
Nicely done there from Tom Hackett. Bearing in mind, we saw that big incident he had on the opening laps. He's now worked his way back up into 10th position. Oops, there's the BMW getting a bit wide, but that's Fiducci and Cal side by side again. Oh, that's going to force Dan Cal onto the runoff area. Nowhere else to go. The right-hander then belongs to the Veloci 8. Finally, Fiducci has got up into second, but he's gone a little bit too deep, going through Sunny in, Sunny out. Not quite. My goodness me, just about keeps the car facing the right way as I'm coming up to the complex once again. Fiducci now, his eyes very much set on Richards. Richards has had to defend from someone all race long. My goodness me, that is... Oh, that was impact between the two. Oh, goodness me, that's... that was well defended there from Richards, but is that going to give the momentum back to Dan Cal? Not quite. He had nowhere to use that. Well, a bit of a shake of the head there from Fiducci. He wasn't best pleased with that, but that's the nature of the beast.
And what I think I found out is the BMW has the better brakes, but the Honda is very, very good going through mid-corners. You can see there, again, just being able to defend off the inside line there as we go through the chicane. It does seem they get a tiny bit loose there, but it's going to go side by side here. This could be Fiducci winning it. It's almost free wide here. This track is definitely not eligible of going free wide, especially in these wide of cars. But we do see Fiducci actually getting the lead, but it's still going to be now not Mitch Marie. So that's going to be Matt Richards again with Dan Kell as well. Still going to go side by side with each other. Who's going to be able to take this? This is going to be absolutely devastating here for Matt Richards if he's not able to regain pole here. But we do see the amount of time he's lost by these two cars actually again battling going into sunny shears. We do see Daniel Hurlock's actually been able to gain time here even on those extremely sharp soft tires there, but we do see now Dan Kells being able to take P2, but it looks again like he wants to retaliate there, Matt Richards, but is he going to be able to? There's going to be a tiny bit of door rubbing between them both, but this is actually going to allow now Dan Hurlock to get through, and he's going to be able to take P2 at this rate.
Oh, it's getting a bit up close and personal between Dan Kell and Matt Richards as well as the three of them side by side coming through that final hairpin. Dan Hurlock squeaks through into second. Fiducci's like, I'm off. See you guys. As Dan Hurlock tried to defend the inside line against Matt Richards. The Civic goes for that inside line coming up towards Clevo. Doesn't get the overlap though. Dan Kell, my goodness me, there's a fair amount of paint being traded between the Honda and the Ford. As Dan Kell tries to get the inside line coming through Hawthorne, and there's impact between the two. And again, the Civic manages to catch it, points the nose and boots the throttle. That's how you drive a front-wheel drive car. Nicely recovered. I think Dan Kell may have realized he was a little bit out of shape there as they get side by side again, this time into Tower. Goodness me, are they going to have any of their original paint on their cars? They're swapping paint all over the place.
It does seem so, as we do see now Matt Richards still being able to hold on for P3 practically for deal life, but we do see now Dan Hurlock has practically just gained a free spot into P2 there as he's trying to go with Fiducci there, but again a 3.3 second gap in the span of a lap or two is absolutely nuts as we go back down. And Mitch Marie's perspective currently in P8, we can see him now trying to run away from this pack of cars that you can see behind him. It's all three of the cars, again all three different manufacturers behind him as well. You can see that Cupra behind him of what is going to be Brewster as well as Hackett in the chrome Hyundai, as well as we can see Callum Wilson in the Richards co-car. But do you see the Hyundai still on fire here? He's trying to get these positions back. Obviously Hackett was the one who was in that unfortunate incident going on to turn 1, I believe it was, as we do now see going into the hairpin once again. This seems to be where we see all of the overtaking happening, and it's going to be Richard co-car now trying to go for it, and unfortunately a tiny bit of an incident between them both, but luckily nothing too fatal.
No, not a little bit too deep there for Callum Wilson, but does manage to get back into position. He's actually lost the position to Tom Hackett, so he definitely didn't come out on top there, as Callum Richards have actually swapped round on the tower, but they're still side by side. We can see that battle for third is still raging on. Dan Hurlock has disappeared out of the shot absolutely well and truly. Again, bearing in mind that Matt Richards is the one on the medium tyres. He's the one I thought the tyres would be in best shape of. But again, the amount of fighting these guys have done, everyone's tyres must be absolutely sponged by now. But either way, Dan Kell up into third position, denying our pole sitter the opportunity for that third position at the moment. This is going to be a big move on the inside coming up towards the final turn. We'll see, but Gianmarco Fiducci takes the first win here at Croft as we actually have a car coming into the pits. Matt Ellington potentially, then Dan Hurlock second. It's actually Dan Kell does defend up into the hairpin, takes the last podium spot. Matt Richards over the line in 4th, with Jordan Richardson in 5th, Callum Cripps 6th, Cedar Vire 7th, Mitch Murray 8th, Callum Brewster 9th, and Tom Hackett in 10th position. Wow, what a absolutely superb race. Quite a lot of bumping and banging, which I somewhat suspected would be the case here in Croft, but that was a superb race. Well driven.
It was brilliant, to say the least. It's just so unpredictable, as we did see Daniel Hillock starting to fall off with that pace on those soft tires, but then just leaps back with the obviously the fortunate position he was in with the battling between Dan Keller and Matt Richards. Just gave him that practically for free, you could say, as we can see them all now cutting the chicane going in to turn 2. It seems as we do see now this is going to again determine championship points, as we do see Dan Hurlock's being able to extend his championship, but not by much, because we do see Fiducci as well being able to take the win into the first race. But going into the second race, that means he's going to have the advantage of starting on pole position, and the fact he was able to do that wizardry from P7, I'm expecting some good things between these two championship contenders throughout this season, between both of the BMWs.
Absolutely so. And yeah, we've seen how good Gianmarco Fiducci can be, not just in this series, but in other championships across sim racing. Absolutely superb stuff. So we'll have the confirmed finishing results shortly once all the cars have crossed the line. There it is. So Gianmarco Fiducci takes the win. Dan Hurlock in 2nd, Dan Kell in 3rd, with Matt Richards 4th, Jordan Richardson in 5th. The Vapor Shield Hondas coming home 4th and 5th. Callum Cripps, the lead of the Richardson Co. BMWs, in 6th. Cedar Vire 7th, Mitch Murray 8th, Cameron Brewster 9, and Tom Hackett in the Hyundai rounding out the top 10. Callum Wilson 11th, not how he would want to hang on to his 2nd position in the championship, but still 2 races to go. Scott Mitch Melm in 12th, Matthew Lee 13th, Jack Nichols 14th, Tom O'Leary 15th, with Ty Cuthbert 16th, Bruno Reno 17th, Adam Christopher 18th, Alan Smith 19th, and Matty Allington, quite a few of the backmarkers retiring in the pit lanes, and not all of these. I think Matty Allington downwards didn't see the flag. Thiago Lopez in 21st, and quite a few registered as DNF. Phil Morby, Tom Moll, we saw having that huge accident. Max Spooner, Jeff Fournier, and Ben Willis not seeing the checkered flag. So then the grid for race number 2 will be formed from the finishing results of race number 1. So the order that we've just read out will be the grid layout for race 2, with again the tyres playing their role. Only 4 drivers opting for the soft tyres on this occasion, although one of them is Sam Damon, who is not with us for Vapor Shield. So only 3 actually running. So that is Jordan Richardson in the Vapor Shield Civic, Tom O'Leary in the Richardson Co BMW, and Ty Cuthbert in the Quartermass Cupra. How much of a difference will it make? Well, the medium runners were able to really make the soft runners work. Not too many soft runners this time around. Quite a few mediums, but vast majority of the soft tyres being utilised in the 3rd race, as we said at the beginning. So, yeah, we're still in for a good time. I always say this, always looking forward to it, but every race is always thrown up quite an interesting result, and Croft is certainly not disappointing.
100%. And from the experience of the current rounds that we've been faced with, the 5 that we've, I think it's 5, or have we done? Oh, actually, no, this is the 5th round. No, we've done 5.
6.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. But the second race usually does provide the best racing, because everyone's actually in the determined grid's position they would be in terms of pace. But obviously that is going to change with that tyre allocation. Most people now being on the medium and hards compared to the soft, so we should see quite equal racing, to say the least, compared to what we're going to see with round 3.
Well, if anything, is unpredictability is always at the forefront of these races. Can Gianmarco Fiducci run off into the distance, or will he be swallowed up by those with softer tyres? What is Fiducci running this time? He is running the hard tyres this time around. He's run his softs, so he's now going to be, I think he's really going to struggle in this particular race. He's using his mediums for the reverse grid race. So, yeah, we'll see whose decision comes out on top then. Bearing in mind that most of the field are going to be on those softs, and they didn't look like they really disintegrated as much as we thought they would in race one. So, yeah, I really thought the soft runners were going to be absolutely spent by 2/3 through. But again, I'll happily be proven wrong. I usually am when it comes to these kinds of predictions.
Not always.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Just wait for the grid to be formed for round 2. Obviously, the championship has changed once again, with Fiducci now in the optimal place for himself, being able to gain these positions. Again, going into the lead and taking the win for the first round is going to decrease the gap between him and Daniel Hurlock for the lead of the championship. With him obviously missing the rounds that he has, is not going to be optimal at all for him. So he has a lot of work ahead if he is trying to win this championship.
Well, indeed. But again, all it takes is one missed round or one disastrous round. I mean, take Tom O'Leary, for instance. He's had 2 wins in the season. Thruxton really his strongest round so far. All 3 races a podium, 2 seconds, and winning in the second race. And then, so, scoring... quick maths has always kind of failed me. 35, 55, 56 points in that race, in that event. So that was round 3. But round 4 at Donington only scored 7. That is how one bad night's racing can just completely turn your championship upside down. And bearing in mind that Tom O'Leary was most certainly a championship, well, still is a championship front runner. He was in 4th. So it's not like he's plummeted down. But that has given him a huge task if he wants to close in that gap above him.
100%. So we could obviously see one of the backmarkers, I wouldn't say backmarkers, but some of the other championship contenders actually take the championship at this rate. It's so unpredictable, this series, that anything can happen. And seeing what we saw in the first race for tonight, it's just so true, though. Anything can happen. It's so unpredictable, especially with the tires. It's just, and obviously as well, the crashes that we see. It's remarkable how unpredictable this racing series can be.
That's touring cars for you. That's what makes them so spectacular. Is we saw some really great moves. We saw some slightly less successful moves as well going on. But again, sometimes you do have to be a little bit creative. Bearing in mind that these drivers are fantastic. Top to the bottom of the field, they are all really good. And sometimes you don't have, or inevitably, you do not have time to think about the move you're about to do. Sometimes you have the luxury of time if you're trying to pressure your opponent into a mistake, or you've been behind them for a while trying to make the move stick. Okay, you can think about how you're going to execute the move, but a lot of times you're just driving on instinct and reactions. So you've got to make a split-second decision on which direction you're going to go to avoid an incident or not get involved in someone else's crash. So, it's not always an easy decision to make. And as we've seen, sometimes it goes well. Sometimes people do some brilliant maneuvers or avoiding tactics. Sometimes you end up with the car rolling through the dust, as we've seen already tonight. So you can always count on some unpredictable moments, particularly in touring cars.
I've got a new question for you.
Oh, a new one.
I've been thinking of them. All right. So in terms of the rounds that we've currently had, all 5 of them, not including race 1 of Croft today,
yes,
which event would you want to reset?
Oh, that's a superb question. And that is so hard to... That is a cracker. Which one would I redo? Oh, I tell you what, Thruxton was an absolute cracker. Biased because it's a local circuit of mine? Well, not really, because we had some brilliant racing at Thruxton. We had 3 different winners. We had Dan Hurlock taking the opening win. We had Tom O'Leary taking his second win of the season. And then we had Callum Wilson taking his first win of the season. So 3 different BMWs, admittedly, but we had some brilliant racing. Every track we've seen has generated some excellent action. At the end of every broadcast, we always say, don't we? that's been the best so far, or that's been some brilliant racing thus far. And every track has always generated some awesome match. But then, I mean, we really enjoyed Oulton Park last time out, didn't we? Matt Richards really stepping up, taking the first 2 wins with. Second, he almost did the 3. Callum Wilson taking that final win last time out. But yeah, the Honda really came good at Oulton Park. It is proving pretty handy here. Although, Gianmarco Fiducci was the one that muscled his way through. Was that down to tyre advantage, though? That's something else to bear in mind. He's not going to be running the soft tyres. He's already done them, so he's on the harder tyres, so he's going to be at a disadvantage compared to quite a few around him. We'll see what he is able to do. I mean, Gianmarco Fiducci, like we said, is a superstar of sim racing, but so many of these drivers are, like I said, just absolutely phenomenal.
It's very much true. I'm starting to think with this series, it's not the track that provides the racing. It's very much the cars and the drivers, which again is practically 90% of it. But again, when you have a track like, I'm going to say Thruxton, because obviously that was the closest racing that we've had, it definitely gives it that extra 10%. And just how many overtaking opportunities were present around that track, especially in those cars, it's brilliant to watch. We're not having that same kind of luxury, you could say, if it's not obviously Croft's being a tiny bit more narrow, well, not tiny bit, significantly more narrow in certain places, and just not having many overtaking opportunities is just definitely going to be a bit more difficult for these drivers to get these moves done. But Fiducci does it.
He certainly did it. It took him a while. I mean, he was right the way down to 7th at the beginning of race 1. Did manage to muscle his way to the top, as we're now seeing the grid forming up for race number 2. Gianmarco Fiducci and Dan Herlock will be taking the front row. Dan Kell and Matt Richards will have row 2. So still Dan Kell in a very strong position. Jordan Richardson and Callum Cripps will have row 3. C. Devire and Mitch Marie will have row 4 with Callum Brewster, Tom Thackett on Tom Thackett. No, I've just read that board as Thackett, as Tom Hackett, excuse me, on row. And that's some vigorous weaving from Gianmarco Fiducci. Again, he's on the hard tyres, so he is going to have to be quite inventive on how much energy he sticks into the tarmac. So Callum Wilson and Mitch Merle will take row 6 with Lee and Nichols row 7. Tom O'Leary and Ty Cuthbert on row 8. Bruno Rado and Adam Christopher on row 9. Alan Smith and Matty Allington on row 10. So what we saw in qualifying was a lot of very, very close times. We didn't, unfortunately, there were quite a few that retired from race 1. It was a bit attritional, but did someone expect that? Did see a few unfortunate incidents happen. Never want to see them, but there are some turns on some circuits that are a little bit more towards a prone to certain instances. Will the Beamers be top of the pile this time? Well, like we said, Gianmarco Fiducci is on the harder tyre. What's Dan Herlock? He's also running the hard tyre. So the 2 front-running BMWs are on the hard tyre. Dan Kell is running. He's running soft. He's also on the hard. So the top 3 are on their hard tyres. What about our pole sitter from race 1? Yeah, well, that's 4 for 4 so far. The front 2 rows all on hard tyres. What about Mr. Richardson? He's on softs. So this is Jordan Richardson's soft effort. So can he get that Vapor Shield Civic to the front? What about Callum Cripps? Callum is on the medium tyre, so he will have some tyre advantage over those ahead of him. But I would think Jordan Richardson is going to be the one. If he can make those soft tyres work as well as we saw others do in race 1, he has got a real chance to get through to the top.
Indeed, so we do see now the grid lining up, getting ready for race 1 until we hear the horn. Fiducci going to be able to take pole position, followed then by Herlock in P2, again Dan Kell in P3. Again, the finishing results from race 2 as we just wait for the horn to be activated, and we will start seeing the green flags being waved as we go green here for race 2 of round 6 at Croft here for tonight. As we do see, this could be a bit of squeezing already from Dan Kell as he tries to go for the inside line straight away. But we do see Fiducci blocking that off instantly, as we do already see now Matt Richards going up into P2, but it's going to be a tiny bit of contact between the two. He goes flying off into the gravel, but luckily manages to recover, and it does seem so far it's still going to be the original P3. The P1 to P3 that takes it so far. We do see further back there is a tiny bit of door rubbing going on into the chicane, but luckily everyone seems to have survived it so far. We do see now Fiducci trying to defend himself from Matt Richards going into it. There's going to be a contact between them both, and that's going to be Fiduci unfortunately going on to gravel, and unfortunately that's going to be him spinning going into the hairpin, and unfortunately that's going to be him again right at the bottom of the field, unfortunately for himself.
What I think, oh no, we've got a car from the inside as well. Who was that? It was Nichols, I think it was, as right by the fire. Oh, that's Tom Hackett. Let's come together with Miss Marie. Tom into the wall. That's twice he's had incidents on the opening lap. But up front it's Dan Kell, Jordan Richardson up front. So Jordan Richardson on the soft tyres, Dan Kell on the hard. Callum Cripps in the BMW with Cedo Fire at fourth. Dan Herlock in fifth. He's lost some time as well. What I think happened with Gianmarco Fiduci was there was impact between himself and the chasing BMW, and as they were kind of concertinaing up, as the BMW was trying to slow down, that actually caught out quite a few people behind, and the rest all kind of piled into him a little bit. As we see, that is Tom O'Leary trying to make a move at Dan Herlock, we saw at the bottom of the shot. We are looking at Matthew Lee at the moment. Big stream of cars, of course, everybody's still heavily condensed, but Dan Kell in the Ford leads the way from Jordan Richardson. Callum Cripps rounds out your top three.
Brilliant so far. It does seem Callum Cripps is starting to do a bit of a redemption arc, to say the least. He is going to be taking P3 and that BMW replacing Fiduci at this rate. Fiduci definitely has a bit of a task on his hand if he wants to try and even remotely come to close to points there, as we do see now Richardson in that Vapor Shield racing Honda now all over the rear of Dan Kell. This could be the first time Dan Kell gets a win here, or will we see Jordan Richardson or one of the other drivers for reference taking this away from him? We have seen how unpredictable this racing series has been going into race 1 tonight, as we did see Matt Richards defending for most of it, but unfortunately lost it and went down into P4, I believe it was. And we did see Dan Herlock and Fiduci on the top 2 there. We do see now it's going to be Jordan Richardson, sorry. Now just trying to look on the inside line, going through the hairpin isn't going to work, as we do see now he's going to have the Richardson Co BMW Callum Cripps all over his rear. He has to be very, very aware of that. I'm sure he is, as well as we do see Wire in P4. Brilliant start from him.
Great effort from Cedo Vai, yes indeed. The Brabham Esports Toyota up into 4th position and hustling the back of Callum Consistency Cripps. Bearing in mind, the top 4 have not taken a win all season, so all 4 of them are going to be just not giving any kind of quarter. They will be either defending for all they're worth, or Jordan Richardson has a look on the inside line in the Civic. Can he get that one slowed down going into the tower? Yes, he can. And that's, again, the tyre advantage is going to be coming through for Jordan. I'm not sure Dan Kell really fought that one too hard. It looked like he kind of realised that one was a done deal and let the Honda go. Now, whether Jordan realises, whether Daniel realises that Jordan is on the softer tyres, I am not certain. But here you can see the gap already beginning to form between the Civic and the Ford. That is the difference between the soft option tyre and the hard. So a lot of the front runner we saw in race 1 only had one tyre delta difference, soft to medium or medium to hard. We're seeing now the real difference between the prime and the option tyre being personified in Jordan Richardson. Is he going to burn those tyres out? Well, he's done a brilliant job in managing tyres before, so he could well be coming, as we see 2 cars in the background there. That's one of the Quartermass cars was coming in. So Ty Cuthbert was coming in along with Lee in the Hyundai. So again, a few people coming to grief. We saw Tom Hackett. Sadly, he's retired his car. So Jordan Richardson already checking out over a second ahead of Dan Kell, and Tom O'Leary has now caught this group. So it's still a 4-way group that we're looking at here for what is now second, being led by Dan Kell.
Now, I'm not sure if there is any sort of disadvantage so far to these soft tyres, because I thought obviously they would have died off so quickly as what we did see with Herlock earlier on into race 1, but he did have that redemption arc and was able to take P2 So I'm starting to think there isn't too much of a tire degrade difference for that soft tire there. So I'm assuming we might see Richardson fall off. As we do see now, it's going to be side by side here. Callum Cripps trying to go for the outside line now on to Daniel Kell. It's we do see it's going to have to just try and just stay optimistic here, as we do have to see as well. Wire has to try and get, try to defend from the other Richardson Co BMW of what is going to be Tom O'Leary as he tries to go for the outside line going into the hairpin. Not going to work just yet. He's going to try use the slipstream and the better acceleration to try and get by. We can just see how close it is. It's like a thread between them currently, but luckily it does seem for Wire he has been able to hold it off. Same with Dan Kell. Both of the two different manufactured cars still being able to hold off the Richard Co cars, but I believe I probably just made a bit of a commentator's curse there.
Well, Cedar-Vire, I wasn't sure if you made a mistake there, but certainly Tom O'Leary wasn't going to let him get away with it, as again Callum Cripps has a look on the inside line coming into tower. Can't get it done there. Jordan Richardson already over 3 seconds to the good now, as Kell from Cripps, from O'Leary from Vire, and now Herlock, Mitch Malm and Nichols joins this particular conga line. So with the exception of the gap between Tom O'Leary and Cedar-Vire, which is just shy of a second, this conga line is about 8 cars deep now. Dan Kell must be feeling all the pressure in the world. He's got a pair of Richardson Co BMWs almost trying to sandwich him. One going one side, one going the other. Coming up into the complex. Still the Ford is leading the BMWs as Richardson in the Civic goes through the shot. Now Dan Kell trying to take the racing line. Callum Cripps having none of that. That is Callum up into second place into the Richardson Co BMW. Can Dan Kell do anything about it before they come up towards Clevo once again? Tries to take the racing line. The door slammed in his face. Callum Cripps up into second.
I just want to clarify, this is the battle for P2 with Jordan Richardson, who is supposedly the pole sitter, just out of sight. 4.3 second lead so far. Obviously that soft tire is going to have that advantage in pace, but will slowly drop off. So this is what we want Jordan Richardson to do, try to create as big of a gap as he can. So when his tire does start to degrade, he has a bit of a chance still to produce it. That's going to be, again, Tom O'Leary trying to go side by side here, just coming out of Tower Bend there. As we do see now, Tom O'Leary still having to try take the outside line going into Jim Clark S's, but unfortunately wasn't able to make it from that small little mistake that Dan Kell makes. It just shows you the smallest of mistakes that you can make can lose your positions. We do see now again Tom O'Leary just being able to get by going into P3, making it a 2-3 now for the Richardson Co BMWs.
It is indeed Jordan Richardson, 4.2 seconds ahead of Callum Cripps. Tom O'Leary up into third now. Cedar-Vire looking to try and make Dan Kell's day even worse, but he is dragging Dan Herlock along for the ride. Bit of a gap then between Herlock and Mitchell Malm, 6th to 7th. But Cedar-Vire has managed to get alongside Dan Kell on the exit of the hairpin. So the Ford was a little bit wrong-footed there, but manages to hang on to 4th for now. And Nichols is in there as well. So this conga line looks like it's splitting a little bit. Dan Kell falling a little bit off the back of Tom O'Leary because he's defending so hard from Cedar-Vire. Now coming through the chicane, heading towards Tower Bend once more. Is the Brabham Esports Toyota going to try and make a move into Tower Bend? Doesn't get alongside on this occasion. But I'm looking at the gap in the tower. Has that started to come down? Has Jordan Richardson burned the best out of his soft tyres? We will see. Also bear in mind, Callum Cripps is on the medium tyre, so he does have a small tyre advantage over the likes of Dan Kell, etc. Cedar-Vire now ahead of Dan Kell. Dan Herlock looking to try and make the Calamity Ford's day even worse. It does look like that Ford is very, very loose. So that is giving the opportunities to others around him to push him further down the field. We'll see if he's able to recover that earlier pace. But at the moment, it's Richardson from Cripps from O'Leary, your top three.
Now, with 9 laps remaining, we are starting to see Callum Cripps' advantage starting to peak in now. So we do see that is going to be Wire going into the pits there. I'm not sure what that's about. I'm not seeing any damage on his car, but unfortunately, that's going to lose him a lot of positions. But we do see Richardson starting to lose a tiny bit of time here to Cripps. But again, with just 8 laps remaining. It is still going to be quite close between them both. It's obviously one thing to catch a car, another thing to try and get past them. And with what we've seen recently, especially with Matt Richards, is how difficult it actually is to overtake someone who's defending. So it is going to be close between those two cars.
That was a drive-through penalty for Cedo Via. I suspect that's a track limits violation. Track limits very, very easy to exceed here in Croft because the track is so narrow and it's so twisty. That is not a surprise that a few drivers are falling a bit foul of that. But look at Mitchell, Malm and Nichols as well. Ops in their Fords right behind Dan Herlock. So right in there, well inside the top 10, as we're seeing a few people kicking up a bit of dust on the exit of Sunny Out and coming up towards the complex. That Ford of Dan Kell bouncing all over the place. That's, of course, disrupting Dan Herlock's momentum. Here comes Mitchell Mao. He's going for the outside. Not going to work. And so teammate gets the inside line. A nice move there from Nichols to go up into 6th. No, it's no team orders going on here. Nichols slots back up, back behind his teammate into 7th.
Brilliant racing so far once again. Daniel Herlock struggling a tiny bit currently in P5. Obviously the championship leader currently not really having to fight much because he obviously how much of a gap he currently has between him and P2 in the championship is quite immense so far. So there's nothing really for him to be under pressure so far, but really just to enjoy it so far. But again, still trying to score points is definitely going to be optimal here as he tries to break it on a bit later going in to Tower Benches. We can see now the Ford of Dan Kell starting to feel the pressure of Daniel Herlock. Now just 2 tenths between the two cars. Obviously the two Fords behind as well are going to put a tiny bit of pressure on Daniel Herlock as well. So he wants to try and make this move done as efficient as possible so he doesn't lose any time to the cars behind as we go into Sunny in and out here. It does seem he gets a tiny bit loose, but luckily both of them still being able to maintain 4 wheels on the racing surface as he tries to go for the outside line here going into the complex. I believe there's going to be a tiny bit of a contact there, but there is going to be a Ford going off into the grass there.
That's Nichols that's gone off. Yeah, that's we're looking at 3 wide coming into the hairpin. Not quite. Dan Herlock is really hustling hard. He was pushing so much to get past Dan Kelly. Gets alongside the Ford. Now, who's got the better exit? I think Dan Keller's got the momentum. We're getting a picture-in-picture. That's the Ford of Dan Keller's. Dan Herlock goes to the racing line and manages to sweep ahead of the Calamity Ford. My goodness me, that took everything Dan Herlock had to get that position. A little bit deep going through Hawthorne, but at his 4th position wrestled into the RSR BMW's hands. But you can see Dan Kell not going to give up on that one. Look at the tower though. That lead for Jordan Richardson has come down to under 3 seconds. Tom O'Leary is closing in. I reckon we're going to have a battle for the lead before the end of the race. Here's the other Vapor Shield Civic. Here is Matt Richards trying to keep Phil Morby at bay. Jeff Fournier, who retired from the first race, is now right up there inside the top 10. So as always, we've got battling all the way through the field. Oh no!
Just getting a bit. Oh my gosh, that one's a bit close there between the Cupra and Matt Richards. Then again, it's starting to see that these 3 cars are starting to battle as hard as they can. Now, before the end of the race, there is a tiny bit of a jump there from the Ford that I saw in the distance. But we do see now Matt Richards still having to try to defend like it's currently pole position. But we do see now as well Morby trying to get by. But we do see now that lapse of security is going to now lead for Daniel Herlock. Now trying to get for the inside line. Now, that's Jeffrey Fournier, sorry. But he goes for the outside line going into the hairpin. Another 2 cars, unfortunately, going in, I assume, for the same reason of a drive-through penalty. But again, getting a bit of an update on Fiducci up to P11 so far, which is brilliant to see for himself. Obviously, having to go all the way down after the incident going into lap 1. Making good progress so far with obviously 5 laps remaining. He could be in the top 10 pretty easily.
Could well be. Now, Mitch Marie has actually stopped in the pit lane. Matt Allington may well be doing the same thing. But this particular group continues their argument there. We're riding on board with the 9th place RSR BMW of Jeff Fournier as he is chasing down Phil Morby, Matt Richards, Mitchell Malm, and Dan Kell, and Dan Herlock. So this group, which we're riding at the back of, is essentially the battle for 4th position, but with less than 5 laps to go. Not much time left to do something about it. It's Dan Cal fending off the advances of Scott Mitchell-Melm in the Kings Racing Ford. So it's Ford versus Ford. Well, who's going to be the king of the Fords is the question mark here for the 5th place spot. Dan Herlock gets a bit of a wiggle on the exit of the hairpin, keeps the BMW facing the right way. But that gap, Tom O'Leary to Jordan Richardson, is dangerously close to getting under a second. There is time for the RSR BMW to wrestle that potential first win away from Jordan Richardson. Oh, it's Civic versus BMW. It's Vapor Shield versus Richardson Co. There they are. So what was a near 5-second lead for the Civic is now evaporated. Has Jordan Richardson just been keeping his tyres in check, or has Tom O'Leary been driving the wheels off the BMW? Maybe a bit of both. We have got an absolute scrap for the win with 3 and a bit laps to go.
This is going to be brilliant, but as I said earlier, it's one thing catching a car, another thing trying to get past. But again, these two cars very, very capable of defending and attacking. But we do see as well, I'm not sure if it's going to come to this, but we do see the other Richardson Co car of Callum Cripps in the distance as well. But seeing how much these two are probably going to attack and defend from each other, seeing that they have quite a bit of clean air behind them, we might see Callum Cripps actually starting to become another contender for the win here. But we go back on board now with Matt Richards, again with Morby and Fournier here. It's again these same 3 have been battling practically for the entire race here, as we do see Fournier trying to lurk and trying to collect any scraps from this battle that may happen here, as Matt Richards having to try and defend so hard here, as he only has now 3 laps left to go going into turn 1, as we go back on board with Dan Kell now, as Dan Kell even under an immense amount of pressure in that Clementi Motorsport car from what is going to be one of the new Fords, I believe, of Mitchell here, as it doesn't seem he's going to be able to get by just yet. As we go in closer to Tower Bend now, it doesn't seem anything's going to happen just yet.
And Dan Kell hasn't been as comfortable on these hard tyres as we saw in the first race as he was on the options, but still doing what he can. He's still inside the top 5 just about. Look at the crew behind Matt Richards in the Vapor Shield Civic. He's got Fournier, Morby, and Bruno Reno's not far behind either. With Gianmarco Fiducci just has almost back inside the top 10 from facing the wrong way on the opening laps. He's done a superb effort to get it towards the top. The picture-in-picture is that of the Kings Racing Ford, right behind Dan Kell. So that's Scott Mitchell-Melm that we were seeing there. So penultimate lap now being started. Our top 2 right on top of each other. Jordan Richardson for Vapor Shield in the Civic still fends off the advances of Tom O'Leary in the Richardson Co BMW. Tom O'Leary has 2 wins in this series, a further 3 podiums. Jordan Richardson yet to score his maiden win. He also has 2 podiums in this series. Would very much love to get a win under his belt. So Jordan Richardson currently sits in 8th in the championship. Tom O'Leary in 4th. So Tom wasn't with us over in Oulton Park. So again, keen to make up for lost ground with those points, of course, that he wouldn't have been able to score. They worked their way through the chicane, now screaming towards, through Jim Clark Essex, now into Bancroft. Sunny in, Sunny out. Both of them catching quite a lot of curb. You see how defensive Richardson is having to drive to just deny any momentum to the BMW. He takes the racing line. That is Tom O'Leary with the inside coming up into the complex. Can the Civic do anything about it? Well, the BMW gives necessary racing room. That's going to put the Civic to the outside of the hairpin. Tries to run for the BMW, but I think that is enough. Tom O'Leary takes the lead with 1 lap to go.
Brilliant racing. Richardson not going to let that slide, though. He's going to try and retaliate until the end of this race. Now, with the final lap now happening, he's still in the really close proximity now. But what's interesting as well, again, Tom O'Leary's teammate, Cripps, has lost time during that battling stage, which I'm starting to feel. I believe he's on those hard tyres. Starting to feel it as well, actually, which is starting to be a bit impressive for Richardson, who's actually now lost 6/10 to Tom O'Leary. So it just seems that Richardson's tyres have unfortunately just left now, and just starting to feel the pressure as well, which is overheating his tyres. As we do go aboard now with Scott Mitchell-Melm, currently in the Kings Racing Ford, one of the new Fords to the series here, still trying to put pressure now on Dan Kalkia in P5. This could be the battle for the top 5 as we enter onto the final lap. Obviously, we do see now going through into the Jim Clark S's. He's still not going to be able to make any sort of move up just yet. So we do see now Scott is going to have to try to do anything he can for the final few corners of Barcroft and the Sunnies and the complex that we have left, going through Sunny in and Sunny out now. Again, it does seem Dan Kell still being able to maintain a tiny bit of a gap there as he grinds out the cars. We do see this is going to be Tom O'Leary going through the final corner to take the win for race 2 here. Unfortunately, Richardson's not going to be able to retaliate for himself. Richardson not going to feel so happy for himself, nearly getting his first win, I believe. And that was unfortunate for him, but we do see as well Scott still all over the rear of Dan Kell, trying to wrong foot the other Ford of what is going to be Dan Kell, but he comes across the line taking what is going to be P5 and 6.
Oh, Jeff Fournier just by the bumper length, and a bit of a punch in the face there from Matt Richards. Jeff Fournier holds on by a bumper's width to 7th place from the Vapor Shield Civic of Matt Richards, as they're still all crossing the line. But again, another superb race here in Croft. Tom O'Leary taking the win, Jordan Richardson second, Callum Cripps third, Dan Herlock fourth, Dan Kell in 5th position. Scott Mitchell-Malm 6th, Jeff Fournier 7th, Matt Richards 8th, Bruno Reno 9th, Gianmarco Fiducci getting into the top 10. Superb effort. Well played. As Phil Morby 11th and Cito Vaya in 12th. Now, those are going to be the positions that are subject to the reverse element. So, as a reminder, a random number between 6 and 12 is drawn behind the scenes, and it is that number of positions that are reversed. So the minimum will be 6, which would put Scott Mitchell-Malm on pole. I'm sure he'd love that one for his maiden race in the series. If it's 12, which is the highest it can be, it would put Cito Vaya on pole position. We've seen Cito in the reverse grid pole before in the Brabham Toyota, and I'm sure he would love the chance to do it again. Now, I am a great fan of reverse grid races. I think it really, really mixes things up, makes the faster drivers work for it, but not everybody does. Not everyone's a fan of them. But before we go through that, here is confirmation of the results. Tom O'Leary for Richardson & Co. takes the win. Jordan Richardson second, Callum Cripps third, Dan Herlock fourth, Dan Kell in 5th, Scott Mitchell-Malm in 6th, Jeffrey Fournier in 7th, Matt Richards 8th, Bruno Reno 9th, and Gianmarco Fiducci rounds out the top 10. Phil Morby will take 11th, Cito Vaya 12th, Adam Christopher in 13th, Alan Smith in 14th, Max Spooner 15th, Jack Nichols 16th, Matty Allington 17th, Mitch Murray 18th, Callum Wilson 19th, and Tiago Lopez rounds out the 20, which I believe all rest didn't see the flag. Yes, indeed. Ben Willis, Matthew Lee, Tom Mould, Cameron Brewster, Ty Cuthbert, and didn't see the flag, unfortunately. So we need to wait now for the random element to be drawn. That will be announced basically behind the scenes, and then the grid will be the server will be reset and the grid is then formed. It isn't the work of a moment to do that. It does take a little while to do. So we'll see then. As soon as we know, we will make it known to the rest of the world. But this is the race that always causes the most amount of sparks, shall we say, of a racing night.
100%. Obviously, with that reverse grid effect, it is going to put Fiducci in quite a good position if the top 12 would be reversed. So it could have been a bit of a strategic move. Obviously, the way he was playing, it did seem it wasn't a strategic move at all. He just coincidentally ended up in P10, which is obviously a brilliant position in general from starting last, obviously from the incident that he had, unfortunately, going on into, I believe it was either lap 1 or lap 2, that unfortunately put him to the back of the grid. But again, being able to redeem himself with taking P10, obviously without steward intervention, going into race 2. Race 3 will potentially be able to see him on either the second or first row there. So that will be a bit interesting to see if he's able to take the lead for that race.
Indeed. So then, just going to wait for the number to be decided. Then obviously then have to be communicated down to the drivers and also to the organisers. It isn't the work of a moment to get the grid built. It does take a little while to do. Then all the drivers have to get in, and then we will get this final race of the night underway. But yeah, Tom O'Leary did exactly what he needed to do to deny Jordan Richardson his maiden win of the season. But even still, Jordan Richardson did a great job to build up that lead. Wasn't to be at the end, but yeah, did a superb effort. That will definitely help adding another podium to his championship.
Indeed. And now I've got another question for you. It's not as good as my first one. I'm proud of my first one. Obviously, we've got new liveries, so you know exactly where this is going. In terms of the new liveries of the new cars that we see, well, the new team, should I say, that have joined us since the last time I asked you this really repetitive question. What one would spark your interest the most?
I tell you what, that King's livery does look quite nice, on the Ford. So that one is an interesting one to look at. The thing is, every time we talk about the liveries, I always kind of look at the list and think, oh, I like that one. Oh, but I like that one. Again, a number of our liveries have changed since the beginning of the season as well. So, of course, some teams have dropped out, so new teams have come in. And equally, some of the existing teams ones have changed, like the Vapor Shield ones are now much more blue. They were more white and black at the beginning. Some liveries haven't changed. I think the Drake and the Grow liveries haven't changed. The Callum Wilson, the Richardson Racing BMW definitely hasn't changed. The one that's, I was going to say the one that's always easy to see, but they're all quite distinctive in their own way. The RSR BMW's not changed. The Quartermaster ones were the ones I was thinking of, are still very, very distinct. I do quite like that King's one, though. That the new Ford that's come to join. I do quite like that one. Yeah, see, we've never agreed, have we? We've never agreed on the livery question.
I don't want anyone to take this in the wrong way, but I think it looks like a butter box, like a margarine tub. I think
you heard it here first, folks.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, not.
I've just got.
Okay, so it's P10 that has been reversed, which is Gianmarco Fiducci on soft tyres. Right. Well, hang on, no, is he? No, Gianmarco Fiducci is on medium tyres. He ran his soft ones in the beginning round. Bearing in mind, 14, I think, of the runners for tonight are running their soft tyres this round. Okay, so Gianmarco Fiducci is going to have some work to do. Now,
the luck he's had is absolutely astonishing.
So that basically means Gianmarco Fiducci and Bruno Reino will take the front row. Now, that was a really good result for Bruno. I don't think he started on the front row all season long, hasn't been many points for Bruno Reino. He's down in 23rd in the championship. But this will be... So that was a really strong result for Bruno Reino. So that's his best by far of the season. Then it's going to be Matt Richards and Jeff Fournier on row 2. Scott Mitchell-Malm and Dan Kell on row 3. So Dan Kell has been starting in the... Well, this will start him in 6th, but it's... he's been right up there all night, is Dan Kell in the Ford. Dan Herlock and Callum Cripps will be on row 4. Jordan Richardson, Tom O'Leary, row 5. So, yeah, Gianmarco Fiducci does have the opportunity to run off, but he will have a bit of a tyre disadvantage to those around him. Not that that stopped him before, mind you. But yeah, Bruno Reino, that kind of dawned on me as I was reading those out. Yeah, that's a great effort for him, finishing up in 9th place. And now gets the opportunity to start on the front row. I imagine he might be feeling a bit nervous about that.
I'm starting to think, I don't want to say this because I don't want to commentators curse anyone. So how do I phrase this in a way that won't curse anyone? Fiducci.
Get off the fence and say it.
I'm trying to, but I also don't want to make enemies. In terms of Fiduci's performance in the first race, obviously he would have probably taken pole position if it wasn't for the unfortunate incident that did happen with him. But the redemption he had being able to take it in P10, it's just absolutely snapped in place. Everything has practically happened for a reason for him. And now him being able to take pole position with those medium tires, may I add, not the soft tires or the hard tires, he is practically on that optimal set of tires for this race. It should be a breeze for him. I've said it now.
I was just having a look at the TCUK lounge just to see what some of the drivers are saying. Some of it isn't broadcastable. For instance, Dan Herlock and Dan Kell congratulate each other on their really, really good battle. Dan Kell was weight and hard is not ideal. You can tell which phrase I paraphrased. But yeah, this is going to be interesting. Gianmarco Fiduci, I suspect, is just going to run. Because I think the rest of the soft runners are going to be tripping over each other to try and re-establish the pecking order, and Gianmarco Fiduci is going to vanish into the distance. That is my suspicion, but we will see. The tyre deficit may well just prevent him from doing that. I don't think it will. I think if he was running the hards on this race with everyone else running soft, then I could see Gianmarco Fiduci really struggling, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Italian has got this one.
Yeah, everything's falling into place for him. Now he's got those medium tires. It just seems a little too right, though. It seems everything's a little too perfect for him. So I'm still very skeptical on what's to happen. But again, as I said earlier, how unpredictable this racing series is. Anything can happen. So we're just going to have to find out after the grid has formulated, which should happen shortly, hopefully.
It will happen very soon. Like I say, it's not the work of a moment to get the grid built and then get all the drivers in, make sure everything is working, etc., etc. It does take a few moments to do, which is why we have to fill.
Exactly.
But then we will get the rolling lap underway and then get our third and final race of tonight underway. Yeah, I do always look forward to the third race. I look forward to all of these races. It's a broken record statement, and I don't apologize for making it. It is absolutely belting, the racing that we see here. And the third race always generates more sparks because of that reverse grid element, which, like I say, I am a big fan of. And yeah, this is going to be something quite spectacular on a track that is very, very tight already. Brace yourself.
Exactly that. With that in mind, I think for next time round, for these filling spaces, I'm going to bring flashcards of questions to interrogate you.
Be my guest. Well, I tell you what, we know. We were talking off air what's going to be an interesting talking point about our next round is.
Oh no. Yeah, let's not mention that certain word that I'm going to forbid anyone from saying until it.
Tough
event
deal with it. So we are talking about next week's race, which we will talk about when we get. As the grid is now beginning to form, the Veloci Esports ace of Gianmarco Fiduci now leads the field away. Bruno Reino up into second place. Now, some drivers really relish being towards the front. Some people get very nervous, particularly in reverse grid situations where it does kind of put you in a position where you know you've got faster drivers behind you. So we'll see what Bruno... Some drivers choose to just let the quicker ones go, decide this isn't really my fight. I'm not realistically going to stay in this position. So rather than slowing us all down, I may as well just let you go because you'll get past me anyway. Or some people, as I hope they do, really defend, really show what they're made of, and prove that they are able to fight amongst those that perhaps have got a little bit more pace than we've seen from them all season. So we will see. As Gianmarco Fiduci now leaves the field for the final parade lap of the night. That warm-up lap. Always got a parade lap. So coming through the Jim Clark S's. Everybody just then getting what tyre warming and brakes warming they can done in the period of time. And it's not a very big lap. Through Sunny in, now through Sunny out. Seen several drivers have their race rather unceremoniously ended around this particular point early in the race. There's Ben Willis towards the tail end of the field, but still with cars around him. Working their way through Sunny out. So, what can we expect from the final race? Well, are we going to see chaos and carnage, or is it going to be more amazing racing? Well, probably elements of both columns, let's be honest.
That's what we've always seen as we do now start seeing the grid formulating for the final time of the night. Fiducci taking pole, Reno in second, and then Matt Richards taking third in that Honda. So that is just again another really diverse grid in terms of manufacturers there, as we do see them all lining up ready to go racing for the final time for tonight.
Indeed then. So with the grid formed for the final time tonight, let's get ready to go. All the nerves jangling, all the revs doth rise. And we are racing for the third time here in Croft. It wasn't a great start there from the RSR BMW of Jeff Fournier, as he's got a lot of people condensing out. Gianmarco Fiducci really gets on with it. Richards straight up into second then, and straight on the case of Gianmarco Fiducci. Well, I thought he was going to... Oh, we've got big incidents behind Richardson plummeting down the field. Yellow flags there. There has been some kind of major collision, not as potentially not as many as I was expecting, but Jordan Richardson has certainly fallen foul. So I've got the picture-in-picture of Matt Richards in second position on the tail of Gianmarco Fiducci. The rest of the field all being, certainly most of the field, being very, very well behaved, being a little bit more cautious in these opening laps. But the Civic is right with the Veloci BMW. Bruno Reno still in third. So as for the rest of the field, so far so good. But Matt Richards, he is hustling hard.
Indeed. So the Fiducci now in that Veloci car needs to just start preserving his tyres as well as Richardson, because obviously we've seen this before. Just preserving your tyres are going to be key. You're going to be under pressure at all times practically. As we do see, that's going to be Richardson getting a tiny bit loose going through the hairpin. I'm assuming he had a bit of a touch there from Reno behind in that Vauxhall. But it does seem they're starting to create a tiny bit gap now, as we do see there's a 5/10, 6/10 gap between P1 and P2, and a 7/10 gap between P2 and 3. So it's starting to become a tiny bit isolated there, but that's probably because of the big train of cars that we do see behind, probably spanning all the way down to P8 there as we go on board now with Wyatt, who's currently in P10. Not had the best of luck going in to race 2. Obviously his drive-through penalty did cost him that race, unfortunately, as we do see now again the Richard Co car going very, very slow there. That is going to be, I believe, that's going to be, who is that?
Callum Critz.
That's Critz.
Yeah, he had to take avoiding. Actually, he was side by side with Phil Morby coming through. The Jim Clark S's had to kind of cut the chicane a bit, and it was the other chicane that he had to cut. They've just come through Jim Clark now. So that has caused him to slow down a bit. Side by side, Matt Richards in the Vapor Shield Civic. He's drawn alongside Gianmarco Fiducci. He's just nosed ahead, but it's going to force him to the outside line coming into the complex. Here comes Bruno Reno in the Vauxhall. I don't think we've actually talked about the Vauxhall all season long. We haven't. There aren't many of them. And unfortunately, that we haven't seen them towards the sharp end, but Bruno Reno representing the Vauxhall Astra very, very nicely. But he's got Dan Kell, Scott Mitchell-Malm, and Jeff Fournier right behind him. But Gianmarco Fiducci under all the pressure. Matt Richards doing a superb job.
Indeed, Sarah Richards now just having to defend while also having to attack at the same time. Needs to balance how much he's attacking and balance how much he's defending at the same time. Does not want to lose now. Fiducci having this clean air is going to be so vital for him. Obviously that slipstream will provide quite a bit of dirty air as well, which is going to again fluctuate how much downforce these cars are going to be producing, as we do see Reinho as well now starting to gain a ton of time. That Vauxhall is starting to be quite impressive going on into race 3. I haven't, again, as you were mentioning, we haven't really mentioned much of this Corsa because it hasn't really produced much racing towards the top anyway. I'm not sure if it's done much towards the bottom of the field as we do go aboard now with what is going to be Alan Smith trying to put a tiny bit of pressure on the Ford, and Mitch Marie in front of him, currently in a Ford sandwich. We do see him behind now, Matt Allington as well. That is going to be, again, that Ford sandwich. We do see now Callum Cripps trying to redeem himself, trying to get these positions done as quickly as he can, currently up into P9, as we do now see Alan Smith just trying to not get overtaken here from the second Ford, as now they go side by side, and just even before the hairpin we do see the second Ford of Allington getting up into P11.
Good move there from Andy Allington. Wrong footing Alan Smith coming into the complex. Gets that inside line there. It's Phil Morby. Oh, and that's a touch to the back of the Richards & Co BMW of Tom O'Leary. Oh dear, Phil Morby into the pits. Straight after that, oh dear, his race going from bad to disastrous. But up towards the front, Scott Mitchell-Mount in the Kings Racing Ford is up into 5th place on the back of Dan Kell. Also, another thing I've just noticed, Dan Kell is on the medium tyre, same as Gianmarco Fiducci, so Dan Kell doesn't quite have the tyre performance at this stage of the race than pretty much everybody else around him, and still in 4th. So Dan Kell is having a superb night. Matt Richards still in the tyre tracks of the Veloci Ace up front, as everybody is really having to drive in their mirrors. You don't have huge gaps almost between anybody. Biggest gap we can see on the tower is right the way down in 17th, and that's only 5 seconds. As we watch Gianmarco Fiducci, the picture-in-picture is from Matt Richards in 2nd position. The Civic is going to have to close that gap down again, which is always a difficult feat against Gianmarco Fiducci. Bruno Reno doing a great job in 3rd, keeping that Astra in that podium position. Can he score his first podium of the season? I think it's fair to say that Bruno Reno is having his best night of the season.
What I've just realised as well, another perfect slot in place here for Fiduci's final race of the day, is that his competitors are on the soft tyres and he's on the medium. So he's already being able to gain a 7/10 gap, and this is when we usually start seeing the turning point of those soft tyres, as we do see now Mitch Marie all over the rear of the Rich & Co car of what is going to be Callum Cripps as he goes side by side now, going in to what is going to be Tower Bend. He's going to have the outside line, so not a brilliant line to get to try to preserve your position, but unfortunately it's not going to work. Callum Cripps is still going to be able to maintain his position at P9, but we do see Mitch Marie now still attacking at any point possible, going through Jim Clark S is going into siding in and out. This is again 2 of the most complicated corners before going into, ironically, what is going to be called complex, going into the final few corners. And again, it's just all about getting the right line, otherwise you lose so much time.
Ooh, bit of dust being kicked up there. I think that's Ben Willis up into 13th position. It's not been a good night for Ben, but yeah, has been on the podium, was on 3rd place in the first round race at Donington, so would like to get a bit further up the field. Hasn't been a good night for him here in Croft thus far, but not too far away from the top 10 for him. Mitch Marie has a bit of a look on the inside line coming up towards Clervaux. Does not commit to that particular move. Coming back to Dan Kell, he's fallen a little bit off the back of the top 3. Again, bearing in mind, he does have slightly harder tyres than those around him, so he's just defending for all he's worth, whereas Scott Mitchell-Mount will definitely be wanting to get past him, try and utilise what tyre life he's got left, and also to try and get Jeff Fournier, RSR BMW, off his case. Dan Kell is having none of it. Dan Kell having a superb night, generally speaking, here in Croft. Gianmarco Fiducci has built up a bit of a gap, just over a second, between himself and Matt Richards. Has the Civic overheated its tyres? Does he have to back off a bit? We will see. But Dan Kell leads this train for 4th, with Bruno Reno not too far ahead. So, again, like you say, when the soft tyres begin to wear out, the mediums will start to come good. And then Dan Kell's going to be... Oh, is that the Astra? No, that's not the Astra. Is that Phil Morby? Yeah, that's Phil Morby that is coming into the pits. It's a shame. Great shame.
Seems to be one of the first penalties or one of the first victims of damage, unfortunately. But it does seem now Dan Kell still under so much pressure from what is going to be Scott, who is genuinely quite impressed me so far from the first 2 races that we've seen. Just always either attacking or defending from a driver, and he doesn't let down at all.
No, I broadly thinking the same thing. Actually, I'm really, really impressed with kind of they've shown up and got on with it. As the Kings Racing Ford, it's really. I was going to say punching above his weight, but we don't. Being that it's their maiden round, we're not sure where to put them. But now their expectation is going to be pretty high. Should they join us for the remainder of the season? We look at Cedo Via on the back of Dan Herlock. The RSI BMW, he's going to lose a little bit of his lead, but I don't think he's going to lose a huge amount as we head to Norfolk next time around. Cedo Via in the Brabham Racing Toyota, still sticking to the back of the RSI BMW as we are crossing over the halfway stage of this race. We switch to Jeff Fournier on the back of Scott Mitchell-Malm in the Kings Racing Ford. Cedo Via makes his intention known, not to commit from that far back as they work their way through Clervaux, through Hawthorne once again. BMW had a bit of momentum there but couldn't use it, not enough space there before they come through the chicane. Now can Jeff Fournier do anything about it? Well, no, because then the momentum switches back to Mitchell-Malm as that is a big defensive moment there for Dan Kell. That brings Jeff Fournier right in the mixture. That's going to be side by side between the two Fords. So Dan Kell with initially the inside lines are coming through the Jim Clark S's and Mitchell-Malm backs out of it. That gives the momentum, does he, to Jeff Fournier? No, the RSR BMW just nudges the back of the Ford. They remain as they are for now.
Does seem this is getting rather intense here. Fournier currently in the highest position he's been in all rounds today here at Croft, as he's trying to go up into P5 here, trying to promote himself into that top 5 position here. Got now at the amount that he's attacking, he's lost so much time to the cars behind, but that is probably very good for Dan Kell as well, starting to relieve a bit of pressure from him because now we do see Fournier now attacking Scott for P5 here. Getting the slipstream going into turn 1 is going to be a bit critical here, especially with the accelerations. We do see also Wire in P8 starting to put a tiny bit of pressure on his teammate there, Fournier, in the RSR of what is going to be Herlock there, as we do see going into turn 2. Both cars still going to be remaining in the same positions here, but again with still quite a few laps left to go. We do see now again what is going to be Fournier going side by side here with Scott going into now into Tower Bend.
Can't get it done though. RSI BMW just has good corner exit, with the Ford just managing to keep the RSI BMW at bay. So Jeff Fournier is going to have to think of another way past Scott Mitchell-Malm if he wants to get inside the top 5. Slightly further down, Mitch Marie in the Calamity Ford is got all kinds of action going on, and he's got Matt Allington right behind him, who's got Ben Willis literally on top of him, or near enough on top of him, but right ahead of him is Callum Cripps, the Richardson & Co BMW that he's chasing. So a lot of pressure being applied and defended from in this particular group. As now working their way through into the complex. Ben Willis in the Drake Racing. Oh, goodness me, in the Cupra as the two ahead get together. Tries to sneak through on the inside as Willis. He gets through on Allington. Couldn't quite get through on Mitch Marie. So that's Ben Willis initially, or briefly at least, up into 11th. But Matty Allington did get a good drive from the exit of the hairpin and keeps the Cupra at bay.
Fiducci now practically social distancing from the rest of the grid here. However, we do see now Matty Allington currently in P11, and the risk now from the Cupra is unfortunately loses that position pretty swiftly there from Ben Willis currently in that Cupra. Goes up into P11 for himself, trying to get into the top 10. I believe it's what Ben Willis's goal is going to be, as we can see the 10th contender currently, Mitch Murray, in that Ford in sight of Ben Willis's target. As we do see there's still going to be a tiny bit of retaliation here from Matty Allington, but it doesn't seem anything too much, as we do see the two very, very unfortunate Hyundais, can we say, from this series so far. Unfortunately, with both races seeing at least a Hyundai going into Sunny Inn, which I believe it was the same driver twice, unfortunately, for himself. But it does seem they're starting to make a tiny bit of a redemption out for themselves. Currently in P13 and 14, obviously not trying to battle with each other, trying to give each other space. Obviously, however, this isn't giving each other space at all, as we do see Daniel Kell now still trying to defend as much as he can from Scott. They've been at it practically all race now with 5 laps remaining. The final third of the race left, as we do see they both try to take the entire racing line there. So we do see now the RSR car of Jeffrey Fournier still trying to look to try get by Scott as much as he can, but unfortunately still just stuck in this vulnerable position of trying to get by, but again being glued to the rejection, as we do see now the other RSR car of Daniel Herlock as well. As we do see that's going to be the Toyota still trying to get by Wire, currently in P8, trying to get up into P7, still not going to be able to do anything just yet.
I wondered if CDFR had missed his breaking point there, because he committed to that inside line quite early, but he's fended off by Dan Herlock. This group has remained in their positions for a while, but all the pressure in the world is on Dan Kell's shoulders. Although I'm sure Scott Mitchell-Melm is looking behind him at that very loose RSR BMW of Jeff Fournier. Has a look in the outside coming up towards the complex. That isn't going to work. Well, I was going to say, I was wondering if it was going to work for a second there. And now is Jeff Fournier going to bounce out the inside of the hairpin? No, Mitchell-Melm shuts that door. Here comes Via on the inside line, gets a bit of a tap on Dan Herlock. Does he get that position? No, Dan Herlock has the momentum coming out of the hairpin and remains where they were. My goodness me, the Toyota's trying everything he can, cannot quite wrestle that position from Dan Herlock's grasp.
It just seems that it's still so unpredictable here, as we do see Jeffrey Fournier once again trying to put it on to Scott Mitchell here. It does seem they're both relieving pressure pretty well here. It does seem Scott's being able to manage pressure pretty well for how much pressure he's currently receiving from that RSR BMW going in to Tower Bend for one of the final times of this evening, as we do see again just all over the rear, practically pushing him closer and closer to Dan Kell now, but still being able to defend from the RSR BMWs. We do see now Fiducci now gaining one of the biggest gaps we've ever seen in this series so far, a 5.6 second gap that is still increasing, especially with how much battling that is starting to occur. It does seem Matt Richards is also starting to get a tiny bit isolated between him and Reinho with a 1 second gap, which is starting to come down a tiny bit as well. As we do see that is going to be Warren, unfortunately, going very, very wide there, going into the complex as we go through into the hairpin now. Do you see it again? Scott still being able to keep his position of P5, but we've seen this before with Matt Richardson. It was Matt Richards actually, sorry, who was in P1, but on the final lap, unfortunately, lost 4 positions in just a span of a few corners as well. As we can see, this is going to be the same with the Hyundai here, as it does seem Matthew Lee makes a tiny bit of a mistake going through into the hairpin and lets his teammate through and doesn't fight it, which is probably the smartest idea, to not fight your teammate, as we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, absolutely true. We have seen teammates fighting in this in tonight's festivities, but that occasion, I think Matt Lee just went a little bit too deep on the exit of the hairpin that let Tom Hackett through up into 13th position. But look at Ben Willis, is right into the bumper of Mitch Marie. Callum Grip still the leading BMW of this particular Congo line, riding on board then with the Drake Racing Cupra of Ben Willis, working their way through the chicane now towards Barcroft. Now sunny in, sunny out. Oh, I was going to say a fair amount of curb being taken there, but there's no real space to lose particular momentum. I guess a bit more of a defensive posture there from the Richardson Co BMW of Callan Cripps, but kind of defending a little bit of fresh air there. But we're already coming up to we're on. The leaders are on the penultimate lap then. It's do or die, all or nothing in this penultimate lap of the final race of the series here in Croft.
Been brilliant, to say the least, as we can see again Wire trying to maintain P8 and try to actually promote himself up into P7. As we can see, that is going to be Daniel Herlock still under pressure. Hasn't had the best of luck going into the final 2 races. Obviously, he had brilliant luck going into the first race, but the second and the third race is starting to prove quite difficult for himself as he gets a tiny bit loose there with what is going to be Scott there. That's going to be Jeffrey Fournier, sorry, just getting very loose as well. Again, tiny bit of door rubbing, but luckily everyone stays in one piece as we can see Wire starting to catch up as well. But we do see Wire being able to get past Daniel Hurlock there, so starting to feel the pressure there. Daniel Hurlock as well, I believe his tyres have found his expiration date.
Could well be. They're a bit second-hand now as Dan Hurlock are very, very loose, allowing the Toyota through. It doesn't look like Jeff Fournier is having any easier time trying to get past Scott Mitchell-Malm, doing a brilliant job defending against an RSR BMW. So we'll see what they're able to do on the final lap of the race. There's Dan Kell leading this conga line. He's been in fourth pretty much all race long with all kinds of, well, once the pecking order was established at least, he has been at the head of this particular group. And he's quite happy actually that those behind him are fighting. That just gives him that tiny bit of breathing space he needs to maintain that fourth position. Gianmarco Viducci did what I thought he would do, and he's run off into the distance, though took him a few laps to do. Matt Richards gave it everything he had, but could not keep the Italian at bay. Mitch Marie has got the pressure of the two Hyundais right behind him to hang on to 12th position. Manny Allington is up into 11th. Ben Willis now inside the top 10, with Callum Cripps already ahead of them, but Mitch Marie is just driving in his mirrors now to keep that 12th position to himself. The newcomer Honda is determined to do something about it as we switch to Gianmarco Viducci, who has not put a wheel wrong in this race. It's been a mixed night for him here at Croft, but the final race going completely his way. Some of the backmarkers coming over the line, but your winner for race number 3 at Croft is Gianmarco Viducci for Veloci. Then Matt Richards in the Vapor Shield Civic will take second, with Bruno Reno in the Vauxhall up in third. He hung on to that podium spot. He started second, finished third. Superb effort for him. Jeff Fournier could not overcome Dan Kell at the last. So Dan Kell fourth, Jeff Fournier fifth, Scott Mitchell-Malm sixth, Cedar Vire seventh, Dan Hurlock eighth. Callum Cripps is going to lead the next group of cars over the line. So he comes across the line in ninth. Ben Willis 10th, Matty Allington in 11th, Mitch Marie 12th, Tom Hackett 13th, Matt Lee in 14th, Tom O'Leary 15th. Here comes Ty Cuthbert in 16th for Quartermass, and Callum Wilson 17th. Callum Brewster is going to be the next over the line. There's Jordan Richardson. Oh, what might have been for the other Vapor Shield Civic. He comes home 19th with Alan Smith in 20th position. I think Tiago Lopez has already crossed the line a lap down. Phil Morby, I think, is not in race because the power can't decide if he's in the pit lane or not. But as always, Alex, what a race.
Again, it's just been brilliant racing pretty much most of the night. It did seem to get a tiny bit isolated going on to the third race, but again, that is sometimes what you expect with those soft tires racing around a track like this, which is such a tire thirsty track. But brilliant result there from Gianmarco Viducci, taking P1, followed then by Matt Richards in P2, Reinho taking P3, Daniel Kell P4, Jeffrey Fournier in the RSR BMW P5, Scott Mitchell-Malm P6, and it's going to be Cedar Wire taking P7, Daniel Hurlock in P8, Callum Cripps P9, and Ben Willis in P10, rounding out the top 10 there. So then in P11, it's going to be Matty Allington in that YTF Racing, followed then by another Ford there in number 12, Mitch Murray, followed then by Tom Hackett in the Hyundai, followed then in 14th with Matthew Lee in the other Hyundai, as well as 15th, Thomas O'Leary in the Richard Co BMW, followed then by Ty Cuthbert in the Quartermass Motorsport Cooper. Then it's going to be Callum Wilson in P17, Cameron Brewster in P18, Jordan Richardson in P19, Alan Smith in P20. Now, what I do believe is the rest of the cars didn't finish. A few of them, yeah, most of them didn't finish. Unfortunately, Tiago Lopez, a lap down, unfortunately. Max Spooner not finishing the race. Phil Morby, 2 laps down, unfortunately, as well as Thomas Mould and Jack Nicholas not finishing the race.
Oh, my goodness me. Now it's time to catch our breath and take stock of what we've seen. It is the end of tonight's festivities. Thank you very much to those that have been with us, either live or post-event. Your company, as always, very, very welcome indeed. Thank you very much, Alex Newman, for joining me in the commentary box. Always a pleasure, and I look forward to doing it all over again in 2 weeks' time.
I'm very excited.
Absolutely so. Now, next time we head to Norfolk for Snetterton 300. We will leave the debates about it. Stop it. Leave it to next time. You can probably tell, ladies and gentlemen, there is a bit of a divide on who likes and who doesn't like Snetterton, but we will no doubt go over all that in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much, Tom Bryant, for bringing us the pictures. Awesome camera work, as always, and a great job from our drivers putting on an amazing night's racing. We hope to see you in 2 weeks' time for Snetterton 300 for round number 7 of this amazing championship. Until next time, thank you very much, and good night!